My clients have had a few heavy meals in a row, so they wanted something really light for lunch today. And their choice of protein was Branzino, also known as Mediterranean sea bass. If you've never had Branzino, it's a very mild, flaky white fish, and if you've ever felt like some fish were too fishy or intense, this is probably your best bet. I broke them down, seasoned them with this mix that contains garlic powder, smoked paprika, salt, and basically MSG, rubbed them down with olive oil, and let that sit in the fridge until it's time to cook. I like to keep skinny fish fillets like this cold because it will help prevent them from overcooking before the skin gets nice and crispy. We got this Chinese eggplant from the farmer's market delivery, and they don't really like eggplant unless it's in the form of eggplant parm, so I had to find a way for them to enjoy it. I peeled it, cut them into obliques, tossed with salt, and set them aside to pull out moisture. I wanted to make a bright herbaceous sauce for the Branzino, so I picked parsley leaves, thinly sliced them, and in a bowl combined extra virgin olive oil, grated garlic, the parsley, lemon zest, fresh lemon juice, capers, and chopped pickled red onions for sweetness and texture. I add cornstarch and a bit of baking powder, give them a nice toss, and fried the eggplant so that they're crispy on the outside and custardy on the inside. It's basically a crispy salt and pepper eggplant. I also wanted to do a double fry on them to make sure they're as crispy as possible. For veg, I cleaned up some heirloom carrots and sugar snap peas and just gave both of them a quick steaming. Since the eggplant is a little bit more on the unhealthier side, I had to balance that out with some clean veg. It's almost time to serve lunch, so I grill the Branzino, get that skin a little charred and crispy, and it's time to plate. Steamed carrots and sugar snap peas, the pickled red onion herb relish for the fish, crispy eggplant seasoned with salt, and a tiny bit of white pepper, and finally the Branzino. A simple, clean, light lunch. This is a realistic 20-minute dinner. My wife and sister-in-law were hungry and wanted a late night meal. They requested simple steak and baked potatoes. It's also because it's the only thing we had in the house. The potatoes were going to take the longest, so I wrapped them in plastic wrap and into the microwave. Nuking a potato is the fastest way to cook them. I had a nice ribeye from Lobel's in New York, which they were very excited about. So I dried it off, seasoned heavily with kosher salt, and set aside while my pan got hot. In the meantime, I sliced some chives. Can't have a baked potato without chives. I finally got a chance to use the algae cooking oil. I actually really love trying out new products. The pan was ripping hot, and there were only light wisps of smoke, which is a good sign. It does say that the smoking point is 535 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's very high. I dropped the steak down, and since the inside was dead cold, I did flip a few times to ensure even cooking. For a late night meal, the name of the game is speed, not perfection. Then of course, throw in some butter, a few garlic cloves, and baste that steak. When I used to cook on the line, I always used the cake tester for temperature, and while I don't have one of those anymore, I did have this nice thin Japanese skewer. I personally think you can't really temp a steak with feeling if you want to be 100% accurate. Each cut of meat feels different at different temperatures. It also depends on the thickness of the steak. You can probably get pretty close, but when you're cooking professionally, you don't want to risk overcooking or undercooking a steak, so for the love of God, use a cake tester or a thermometer. I stick the metal through the thickest part of the steak, hold for 3 seconds, and some of you are going to hate hearing this, but this is what a lot of cooks all across the world do. They test the temp either on their upper lip, below their lip, or inside their wrist, because those are the most heat sensitive areas on our body. We do clean between each use, so don't worry. Now, if it feels cold, it's rare. If it's body temperature, it's medium rare. If it feels slightly warm, medium, and if it's hot, it's well done. Low tech, but it's very efficient, especially if you're temping a lot of things at the same time. Potatoes are done just in time with the steak. I pricked them with a fork and popped them open. Served with sour cream and chives, a little malt and salt for potatoes. Cut the steak off the bone, separate the cat from the ribeye, nice slices, and that's an easy steak dinner in 20 minutes and a happy wife. This is my day as a personal chef in Beverly Hills. I usually start my day around 10 a.m., head out and go grocery shopping. Depending on what my clients request, I'll go to different markets, usually just one, but sometimes it could be 2 or 3. They wanted to eat as clean as possible today, and they just want a simple grilled chicken with vegetables. I butterflied a chicken breast so I can get even seasoning with onion powder, salt, smashed fresh garlic, and olive oil. I also received this wet spice blend from Cassie and Hedley and Bennett, so I used that to season my lunch. It's a mix of gochugaru, or Korean chili flakes, paprika, tamari powder, sesame seeds, garlic, onion, salt, ginger, and vinegar powder. I spread it generously on these thighs and legs and onto a grill at low heat so the fat will render. I wanted to make a light little salad, so I quartered some Persian cucumbers and removed the seeds. I usually remove the seeds because they can sometimes be bitter and they also release a lot of water. Some people cut them down the middle and scoop them out with a spoon, but I prefer to quarter them long ways and slice out the seeds. I add half sun gold tomatoes, tossed with aged balsamic vinegar, pick some basil, and give them a nice chiffonade. To chiffonade basil, I just stack them up, roll them nice and tight, and thinly slice to create little ribbons. It's become somewhat of a running joke that I must really love serving sugar snap peas, and while I do love sugar snap peas, I don't love them that much. We get a weekly shipment of vegetables from the farmer's market that I do not get to choose, and sugar snap peas seem to make the cut every single week, and I have to make sure to use all the vegetables we get, even if it can get pretty repetitive. So I cleaned them and cut this single carrot that I have left into obliques. People have asked why I oblique cut a lot of my vegetables, and that's because it looks pretty cute, and it's also a great way to cut wonky shaped vegetables into a shape that's roughly the same size so that they can cook evenly. I also cubed up an avocado to add to the tomato and cucumber salad, and for dinner they had told me they had wanted vegetable soup, so I got started on that as well. They want it to be as easy on the stomach as possible, so I don't use any garlic or onion, just very simple with celery, carrots, yellow and green zucchini, simmered in chicken stock. Almost time for lunch, I grill their marinated chicken breast on high heat to get a nice char and get ready to plate. Steamed vegetables for him with a few roasted beets, a little bit of the tomato salad, grilled chicken, and aged balsamic, while she just gets grilled chicken and lots of that salad. Then after serving them, I got to enjoy my lunch. A nice, juicy, crispy grilled chicken leg. The seasoning isn't too spicy, just a little gentle heat, so I ended up adding more to punch it up. I really like the slight acidity from the vinegar powder. Very good. This is what I made myself for lunch as a personal chef after feeding my clients. Okay, so this is the viral cottage cheese with taco seasoning flavored ground beef and hot honey bowl that was kind of popular a while ago. Probably the first time I've ever made a viral social media recipe, and I'll be honest, I had pretty low expectations. I peeled and cubed the sweet potato, tossing it in olive oil, salt, cumin, smoked paprika, and into the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Then I chopped some yellow onions, threw it into a pan with some oil and a little salt to pull out the moisture. Once I got a little bit of color on them, I added in my ground beef, cranked the heat up, and let that cook. I picked up some taco seasoning because that's what the recipe calls for, threw it in, and let that cook until it resembled Taco Bell ground beef in looks and smell. Then I made an avocado roast for fun and started to build my lunch. First is cottage cheese, the smoky, cuminy roasted sweet potatoes, Taco Bell style ground beef, avocado roast, and Mike's hot honey. I felt like it needed a little bit of acid, so I pulled out my pickled red onions and added that as well. I'll be honest, this looked a bit questionable. Combining cottage cheese with ground beef and honey sounded pretty wild. Interestingly enough, it was pretty damn good. I would honestly make it again. Although I did end up covering it in hot sauce. What other viral social media recipes have I been missing out on? This is what I made as a personal chef in Beverly Hills. I always start off by making a mental list of things that must be done first. And usually the first thing I like to take care of is the protein. In today's case, it's this Mary's organic chicken, which I broke down, seasoned liberally, put into a cold pan, and set the heat to low to render out the fat. While that's going, I jump onto the veg. By the way, did you know it's Brussels sprouts with an S at the end and not Brussels sprouts? I feel like not a lot of people do. Anyways, I cut off the stem, then in half, and remove a few of the outer layers that don't look as pretty. Give them a rinse and let those drain. I check on the chicken and put a press on to make sure that all the skin is touching the pan and to promote even rendering and browning. Toss the Brussels with a bit of olive oil, salt, and into the oven. We got these beautiful multicolor heirloom carrots, so I peeled them and cut into obliques. Carrots are also one of the vegetables that we get every week from the farmer's market delivery. The chicken is looking pretty good. I pull them off the heat and into a pan when they're about 80% cooked. This is so that when it's time to serve, I can just throw them into the oven at a high temperature to quickly finish cooking and not have to worry about timing or getting the skin crispy. It's a good way to take the stress off if you're throwing a dinner party and you don't want to be rushing when your guests arrive. I add some water and salt to the carrots and let those gently cook in the oven. To make the pan sauce, I finally cut some shallots, add it to the pan, give that a mix with a wooden spoon, and scrape the fond off the bottom. Add some crushed garlic, deglaze with some Chardonnay, and let that reduce until the alcohol smell is gone. The Brussels are nicely roasted and good to eat at this point, but I had a bit of balsamic vinaigrette left, so I poured some over the Brussels and threw it into the oven to caramelize. Brussels sprouts are one of those vegetables that absolutely need a little bit of a char. The carrots have cooked, so I drained the water, added a little agave, salt, and into the oven to finish caramelizing. The wine has now reduced, so I add in chicken stock, let it reduce, and to finish, mount the sauce with little knobs of butter. You do have to be careful when mounting with butter. If your sauce gets too hot, it'll break. If it gets cold because you add too much butter too fast, the fat will congeal and it will also break. There are ways to fix it, but if you do it with just a little bit of care, you won't have to even worry about it. Heat control is one of the most important parts of cooking. With everything done, I start to plate. Agave roasted carrots, balsamic Brussels, sauce on the bottom so the chicken skin stays crispy, then the chicken, and that's lunch. This is how I make my kimchi jjigae. If you don't know, jjigae is Korean for stew. Kimchi jjigae with pork belly, tofu, spam, and hot fresh white rice. Oh, so freaking good. I'm not gonna stand for any spam slander. First things first, I got 2 1/4 cups of short grain white rice. Rinse until the water runs clear, drain and get rid of as much water as I can, and let it sit to dry up. I think it's important to let it dry so that when I add in the water, the rice to water ratio is as accurate as possible. Into my donabe, I add 2 1/2 cups of cold filtered water. This is the ratio from the donabe cookbook. I let the rice soak for 20 minutes, then over medium-high heat for 13 to 15 minutes. While the rice is going, I cut my pork belly into large chunks, drop them into a pot at medium heat to start rendering out that fat, and gently fry up the pork belly. The pork belly was making the house smell a little porky, so I splashed a bit of soju to get rid of some of that strong smell. This is a semi-secret Korean trick. The most important part of kimchi jjigae is obviously the kimchi, and I got some of my mom's homemade kimchi that's a bit too old to be eaten fresh. For kimchi jjigae, you want your kimchi to be over-fermented, funky, and sour. No fresh kimchi allowed. I throw in a bunch of crushed garlic into the pork because what is Korean food without garlic? Fry that up until fragrant and toss in all that beautiful kimchi and all its juices. Never throw away kimchi juice. There is so much flavor in there. Add in a bit of gochugaru, also known as dried Korean chili flakes, and let that slightly fry in the pork belly fat. Korean chili flakes are not really spicy. They have a gentle warmth, it's slightly sweet, and it's more for the flavor than intense spice. And what I consider absolutely necessary, spam. I grew up eating a lot of spam. I cut into square blocks alongside medium firm tofu. Spam and tofu, yin and yang. Balance. With the kimchi cooked down and all those flavors nicely married, I pour in Dear Mom fish sauce and throw in all of the kimchi juice and a bit of water. a bit more gochugaru, and the secret ingredient right here, tashida. If you know, you know. But this is basically Korean beef flavored MSG. It's what OG Korean instant ramen basically used to flavor their powders. When I was growing up, every Korean family I knew used to use this stuff in everything. My mom actually stopped using it for a few years because she was worried about MSG, and I distinctly remember asking my mom why her food didn't taste as good as it used to. She did eventually start using it again. Then I had the spam, just in case there wasn't enough sodium, and then tofu for balance. Then I cover it and let it cook for 30 to 40 minutes. I like to stew the pork belly until it's pretty soft. At this point, my rice is finished cooking, steamed, covered off heat for 20 minutes. I give it a gentle fluffing and it's time to eat. It's salty, meaty from the spam, pork belly, and tashida, a little funky and acidic from the fermented kimchi, and the pork fat emulsifies with the kimchi liquid and becomes rich and almost buttery. With that piping hot, fluffy, fresh white rice to balance it all out, this is my absolute favorite thing to eat. If I had to choose, this would be my last meal. What would yours be?